All right, guys, thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Uncle Sonny Project Live, where we have conversations with different entrepreneurs and thought leaders that are going to give you the tips and tricks, the behind the scenes to the mentality that it takes to live a life by design instead of by default. Today we have a very special guest. We actually met on TikTok. I'm super excited, and I want to show my gratitude for you taking the time to speak with us. We got VA Sheppard, who's the owner-operator of RelationFIT Farms, and he has very unique content. How you doing today, brother?
Diamonds, man, good to see you, man. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, man. I wanted to give you the opportunity to just talk a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, how'd you get here, and
man,
where are we going?
Again, I appreciate you for having me on the show. I think it's just a huge honor that you would allow me to share my story with your audience, man. Hopefully somebody's encouraged to go after their dreams, pursue their passions, and really fulfill that purpose that they have. I got to this place, man, by really a lot of failures. You know, I've had some setbacks and things like that, but more than that, I had dreams, had a vision for where I wanted my life to go. And so that has driven everything. And a lot of things have happened in my life, but when you stay with the vision that you have, my vision is to impact people. I want to see lives change. When you put that at the forefront, as situations in life happen, they don't get you off track. See, a lot of times we get caught up in our current situation and we forget where we're going, and it just gets us off track, man. But for me, I actually ended up getting involved with animals and horses and all that good stuff because I was supporting someone else's dream. My daughter she wants to be a vet, and she wanted to work with animals. And when she was 5 years old, she asked me for a horse. And so when she did, you know, I was like, all right, yeah, sure, we can do that. I'll get you a horse when you turn 7, because I figured for a 5-year-old, 2 years is like eternity. And, you know, she'd probably just move on to something else. So she asked me when she turned 6 once, she asked me once, are you going to still give me that horse? And then when she turned 7, right before she turned 7, she asked me again. She said, Dad, you're going to get me the horse? And I had just had to hold true to my word. And I said, yeah, I'm going to get you a horse. And so I ended up trying to find the smallest possible horse I could find. And I ended up getting a real small miniature horse. And I jumped in. And what I found being an educator, my passion again is to help people. What I determined was I was going to use everything in my life to help other people. And so even, you know, getting involved with the horse and all of that, I wanted to start learning. And I saw that in different circles, people were using horses for equine therapy and doing things to impact students. At this same time, I was actually building a school myself. And so in the process of building the school, we made horsemanship a part of the curriculum, where the students that had been labeled were now getting opportunities to be exposed to horses and have this kind of equine therapy as a part of their curriculum. So the story really unfolds from there, but man, it all comes together to get me to this place.
Yes, indeed. Super interesting. And it's not the orthodox path. It's not the traditional path that you usually see people like us go down, where we're wrangling horses and you have so many different animals. Talk to us a little bit about what your day-to-day life is like right now.
Man, day to day, I get up. Well, I've actually set my schedule where I get up, have some quiet time for myself. I do a little reading. I always read Proverbs out of the Bible every day. So, and I try to tell people, you know, it's the book of wisdom. So what I do is I take whatever date it is on the calendar and I read that particular proverb, but I also read more. But I always do that. I connect the dates and I read them, get up and, you know, do that. And then I just take some time quietly by myself. I go and work with the animals. I feed them, make sure they're watered, make sure they're cared for. And that's even before jumping on like a lot of the social media. I like to just make sure that my mind is staying like fresh and renewed, that I take that time to give to myself first and to hear my thoughts. That's a big deal for me, hearing my thoughts. So oftentimes I'm in the car or at home, and I really don't really watch a lot of TV or even listen to the radio a lot because I want to hear my own thoughts. And so then I'll go through, I'll feed the animals, I'll shoot videos. I make content every day because that works best for me to kind of keep it fresh. And then from there, I'm just, I'll do a little exercise. Sometimes I haven't been super great on that, but, I will take care of myself, being active at the farm and, having family time and that kind of thing. But that's what it is. And right now I'm in this process of trying to write a book. So, that takes a chunk of time too.
Congratulations. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I have a
thanks, man.
couple of questions for you. I want to know, is it too early to talk about what the book is going to be about, or can
No,
you give
no,
us?
it's not too early at all.
All right,
Yeah.
what are we writing a book on, man?
I'm actually, it's a book on potential, and using the theme of the farm as well as some other life experiences, just talking about that, the seeds of potential that we have within us. And I'm writing it as if I was writing it to myself from a few years ago, where I had dreams, I had vision, and yet I was still, and I was doing well. The last probably 8 years of my life, I started a women's empowerment company, and I've been, life coaching women for the last 8 years, and that's been really successful. Been able to impact a lot of lives, but at the same time, there were parts of me throughout life that I would manipulate and twist and shift to fit other people's expectations, what other people wanted. And the one thing I've been learning a lot about seeds, it's a simple truth that in order for a seed to release all of its potential, it has to break its shell, right? And so we all have these shells that are covering up, like they're encapsulating our potential. And we have to go through that process of pushing from the inside out. You have to find yourself. You have to find that true voice and push against those confines, whether it be your background, your family background, your educational background, your economic status, whatever it may be, whatever shell you have,
Mhm.
we all have to break through it in order to really grow to fulfill our potential. Right? And there's nothing wrong with the seed. The seed, we look at a seed and we don't think that it's worthless. We look at seeds knowing that there's something else in them. But a lot of times people don't take that same approach with themselves. And so this is kind of like a day-to-day book where somebody can use it inspirationally day to day, but also be challenged to really look at themselves. No excuses. You can make no excuses. Look at yourself and discover yourself. And so that's one of the words I use a lot, because that word discover, really means to not conceal. So when you really look at it, you say, listen, I can no longer conceal myself. I have to discover me. And instead of hiding who you are, be who you are, and be who you are without apology. If you're not hurting, I don't want you hurting people, but if who you are in terms of dreams and hopes and aspirations um, is true, then some good things will happen in your life. So it's all about discovering that person, discovering what's in you, that treasure that's in you, and releasing it to the world, serving it to everybody you can.
So powerful, bro. I'm resonating with so many of the things that you just said, mainly because as long as I can remember, all my teachers have always told me, you have so much potential, so much potential. And young me, I'm like, what are you talking about? What is this potential? How do I tap into this potential? Because me all along, I'm like, well, I'm just doing what I know how to do. Like, that's it. And the way you put it, and I really like how you pronounce it, discover, because there has to be a breakthrough. There has to be an exit of your comfort zone. And me living just in what I knew and what I was comfortable with was me sacrificing potential based on what you told me. That's what I'm receiving. And in order to change that, I really had to start envisioning something bigger than myself. I needed a grand vision. And that's one of the first things you started talking about, is having a vision. And that is, I'm putting together now real time as we're talking, that is the bridge between where you are and discovering your full
Mhm.
potential. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. I think when we personify the seed, right? We look at the seed. If a seed looks at itself, and this really has been a training that I've used with and I share it with the women a lot that I work with, because I actually started the women's empowerment company because it was a place for me to talk, and women like to dialogue. So I would talk with them, and the name of the program, the company, is Cinderella Strong. And so the whole process of Cinderella Strong would be, in her name there are two things, Cinder and Ella, right? So a cinder is something that used to be on fire, that's burnt out, but it still has combustible potential. It can still catch fire again. And then Ella is the word for beauty. And so what I was helping the women do, what I help women do, is to take their life from ashes to beauty, right? But you need a vision for that. And so without vision, that's where people perish. That's where people die. Because if you're a seed and you look at yourself and you say, man, I'm just a seed, you know, I don't see nothing here. You can waste the seeds of your life, because you never find the place of where they need to be planted so they can grow, right? And the other day I was sharing, this is why it's so important for each of us to take care of the seeds of our life. Check this out. When you have a seed, any bit of potential, whether it be, artistic potential, relationship potential, business potential, parenting potential, whatever it may be, the seeds reproduce after their own kind, right? So an apple seed will produce an apple tree, which will produce apples. So when you take care of a seed, you're not only taking care of the seed, but you're taking care of an entire orchard, because that one seed produces one tree, which produces many fruit. And inside of all those fruit are exponentially more seeds.
Wow.
And so if you sacrifice the one thing because you don't think it's anything, you're like, oh, this is nothing, then you lose out on all the possibilities. If you don't do the one idea, then you lose out on all the ideas that'll spark from that one idea. And so this is the big thing that, like, I just try to tell people, don't worry about where you are right now thinking that it won't amount to much. Take care of your small, humble beginnings. Do what you do, be excellent, go all in with it, and watch what happens. It's guaranteed to start producing something else.
That's amazing. My mind is blown. My mind is blown. We a lot of times, and I'm not an exception to this, we don't really think about the residual effects to one small action. I realized recently the power of baby steps, and how baby steps turn into big actual actions and big results. But typically we throw aside the baby steps because, we'll get to it. It's so easy. We'll just do it. It's time to just do it. It's time to commit to it.
Yeah.
A
It's such a great point. Great point you made. I mean, think about when you talk about baby steps, like, and from the standpoint of anatomy and physiology, when you take your steps, that's great. But even in order to get to that step, you had to crawl, you had to try to pull yourself up. So all of that is development. And then when you fall, that's good, because now your body is developing strength because you fell. And so you start to learn, man, that bump, that bruise, when you get a bruise, your body sends blood to that place to heal it. And so all of that is good for you. Now you're activating your system. You're like, oh man, that bruise, that fall is still working for me. So that's why the baby steps are so important, because you need to fall. Like, right. You need to do it, right? So that's a part of the developmental process.
Absolutely. We don't avoid failure here. Not at
No,
all.
Not at all.
Let me ask you a question, because I want to know what you say to people who don't really understand or grasp the importance of having a life coach.
Well, for me, man, I've been an athlete my entire life. And every team that I ever played for had a coach. Right? There was never any team where we didn't have a coach. And that coach was not on the field. They weren't making the plays. They weren't doing anything. They had a different perspective, right? And so, and even professional athletes, everybody has a coach. The best in the world, like Michael Jordan, the best in the world, had a coach, right? And there's a reason for it, because someone can see something else simply because their perspective is different. When you're in the game, when you're doing whatever you do in life, when fatigue sets in, when pain sets in, when frustration sets in, when you get excited and you're just really amped up, those are moments where rationally we make decisions that may not be best, right? Even when you're happy, you're like, oh, I'm so happy, I'm just going to start doing stuff. Well, that might not be the best thing, right? Like you're on the court, you're feeling good because you hit a few shots. That doesn't mean you'd eliminate your teammates and you just shoot all the time.
Right.
So somebody has to say, no. We have to stick to the game plan. We're going to, here's what we're going to do. I see that you're feeling good, but we still need to, have this piece involved. Or I see that you're struggling right now. I need to encourage you to keep going, right? Because sometimes when someone is with themselves, they're the worst person to be with, because everybody's self-talk isn't that great. And so a coach, man, I think is highly important, because they're going to give you perspective, they're going to give you insight, and they can help you go somewhere that you probably have never been before. And that's very much important. And the simple fact that when you have a coach, you have somebody that's on your side. So now you're not just fighting by yourself. You're not just doing by yourself. You're investing in having somebody that's going with you, that is going to be there, that's going to support you. And that's hard to come by. So I very much believe that having someone that you can talk to, share with, have in your corner, discuss strategy with, is just huge.
Amazing. Now, from watching your content, is B.A. Sheppard on TikTok, right?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. From watching your content, there is a very interesting quality to your content. It almost seems like you have a meeting with all the animals before you turn on the camera, and you're like, okay, so you're going to do this, I'm going to say this, and then you're going to come up, and then we're going to do this and do that.
Yeah.
You seem to have a really deep and in-depth relationship with the animals, that you have on the farm. And I wanted to get a little bit of insight as to how you develop those type of relationships with animals, and I assume also with people.
Yeah. Well, my farm, the primary reason for me having the farm is to help people with their relationships. So I say that the horses help me coach humans. And, from that, I work with the horses a lot. I work with the animals a lot. But their job is to help humans. And the reason I use animals is because most people do not have a historical perspective of working with animals, not like farm animals. So when they're there or when I'm sharing something, they get to process it from a whole new lens that they don't know. And they don't look at it as me attacking them or trying to jump on their back or being so hard on them. This is me and the animals. This has nothing to do with you, right? But it's going to apply, but it has nothing to do with you. But the reason that I guess my connection is the way it is with the animals is because I've been through messed up relationships, right? And so I didn't want to be negative or bitter or angry or anything like that about those relationships, but I wanted to learn, because I ultimately want to be the best man that I could be. And so the thing about nature is nature doesn't lie. Nature is going to tell you if you're doing a good job or not, right? Nature is going to tell you if you're caring enough, if you're being considerate. It's going to tell you everything you need to know about yourself. And so the animals let me know about my attitude, and they let me know if I'm not paying enough attention, right? Because if I don't have that connection with them, if I haven't learned them for the way that they are, they're not going to just be drawn to me. So like for horses, for instance, they're prey animals, which means they're the ones that are attacked. They're not the hunters. They're the ones that get hunted. And so humans, we are predators. We kill things. We eat things. That's what we do. We fight one another just for the sake of fighting. And so what I wanted to learn, and again, this is for me as a man, I wanted to learn how to be fully predator but gentle enough to connect with prey. So, like, knowing that this animal looks at me as someone that would be a threat to them, I wanted to build that relationship. So I tell people, I say, look, when a human sits on the back of a horse, that's a big time connection, because predators, when they go to kill a horse, they typically jump on the back of a horse. And so building that relationship where it says, you know what, you're calm and you receive me onto your back, the very place where you expect me to hurt you, that's a big deal. That's a big time relationship commitment. And so all of that translates into working with people. I want to know, how can I best connect with people? You know, some people have been hurt in life. Some people have been abused. Some people have been, lied to. And so when you work with people, I want to be compassionate. I want to be understanding and able to connect with someone regardless of the situation that they've been in, because I'm willing to study them. And I think whatever a person's dream is, whatever, again, goes back to vision, whatever your vision is, you need to be able to support that in your actions. And so my vision is to serve people, which meant for me, I need to learn how to be able to offer myself to people in a way that they can receive me.
It's great stuff. So if you could bridge what you've learned from working with the animals and the horses to someone who is in a job or a situation, maybe even a relationship, that isn't serving them to the best of their ability, to what they know that they deserve. And they want to get out of it. They want to do their own thing. They have a vision, but there's a gap. How could we use what we know about what you've learned from working with animals to bridge that gap?
Okay. Well, if we look at, I would use that the situation you presented, basically that person's dream or vision, idea, substitute that for the horse. Okay. So your dream, your vision, your idea, that's the horse in this situation. Now we're the ones that care for the dream, the vision, the idea. And so what happens is, when we make decisions, we're ultimately deciding if I'm feeding the horse or I'm not feeding the horse. Every decision. And sometimes people say, oh, I want to achieve this, I want to do that. And my response to that is, all right, prove it. You got to prove it. And if you are not feeding your dream, your vision, your idea every day, it's dying. Right? So if I decide, all right, I'm not going to feed the animals this week, it's going to die. If I decide, right, because I have to buy hay, right? I have to buy the feed, I have to buy the grain, I have to pay for the resources needed. If I decide, man, you know what, I would rather, go out to dinner. I would rather go buy this, these shoes, go buy, this car, I'd rather use my resources somewhere else. Well, what I'm ultimately saying is that is more important than feeding the horse. Mm-hmm. And I can't lie about that. I can't say, oh, I want to have a healthy horse, but I don't feed it. And so ultimately every person that has a dream, they have to stop being liars, right? You can't be a liar and think that you are going to achieve what you want to achieve. Mm-hmm. Like, don't lie to yourself. Be for real. Like, you want the relationship with a young lady or a young man or whatever. Okay. That means start eliminating some stuff, right? You want the relationship with her. That means release all the other hers. Like, let everybody else go. Be all about it. Go all in. Now you got to study, right? Because I started with horses. I didn't know anything about horses. I knew nothing. I had to start asking questions. I had to be real humble. I had to start asking questions, start hanging around the barn, start, meeting people, going to conferences. Now I'm using resources in order to learn. So if whatever you want to do, it should be able to be proven. Like, whatever it is, you want to be great at basketball, then you need to be taking a lot of shots. You want to be great at business, you need to be doing stuff in your business. You need to be learning. There's whatever it is, because we all have 24 hours in every day. And you just be raw, honest, no lies, right? I'm at the farm every single day. I have to, because if I'm not, then that means the dream isn't being fed. So you just have to be real brutally honest and tell yourself, today I choose not to feed my dream. And then go about your business, right?
Right.
And in choosing not to feed my dream, I know my dream is not going to be as healthy, but I'm still making this choice anyway. And then go about your business. But don't sit there and say, well, I really want it, but I just don't feed it. No. Be honest. Say, I don't really want it, so I'm not going to feed it. I'm just going to go about my business.
Right. And let that pain set in. I mean, I hope, because if you're truly passionate about it, that's where you should feel a credit. Like when you said that, I felt cringy. You know, there's always more that I could be doing. There's always more consistency. You know, and my struggle is to focus on my wins and focus on what I am doing and reminding myself how consistent I am. But if I were to look at the things I'm not doing that I plan to do and say, oh, well, I just don't care that much, my brain would immediately snap out and say, no, bro, like that's not true.
Right.
So that's not an
Right.
option. The only other option is to get up and do the thing that you need to be doing. So
Right.
if that's not the type of conversation, I think that that person that is having that conversation and doesn't feel that gut instinct to immediately resist the idea that this is just not that important. I think you should really ask yourself some honest questions about if this is something that you're passionate about. And while we're on that topic, I want you to realize that a lot of the times we just do things for money. You know, we've been wired to survive. And if you really want to do something significant, I think you need to move out of survival mode and into thrival mode, you know, leaving a mark, creating a legacy, leaving something behind, generational wealth, or whatever the case is. I believe that your why 100% needs to be bigger than you in order for you to find the type of motivation and inspiration and make the transformations that you have to make in order to, you know, create that type of reality.
Yeah. I think one of the things, when people talk about the change, they want to make a change. They want to birth something new in life. I want something different. I want something different. Well, until you're willing to get really uncomfortable, and this gets said a lot, like, oh, you have to be uncomfortable. You have to be uncomfortable if you want to achieve your dreams. Um, but when we really look at that as a picture, consider a woman who's going into labor now for months sleep. It causes her body changes, her appetite changes, her diet changes, the people that she has around her changes. Everything changes. She starts to touch her store, the kick the baby's pulse, because I want this and I want that, but they want to remain in their comfortable situation. It doesn't work that way. When a woman has to bear down and give birth, she is knocking on death's door in order to deliver something brand new that she cultivated within her for months and months and months and months. And so I tell people, I'm like, look, how uncomfortable are you willing to be to achieve your dream? Like for me, I went to school. I went to North Carolina A&T in Greensboro, right? And I have a degree and everything like that. But there have been times where, and I'm typically an introverted person, right? But I knew that was a part of my shell. So I was like, I have to break the shell I have to do things to break the shell. So I remember one time, man, we have this big 4th of July thing in Philly where, we have this thing called the Parkway where Rocky ran up the steps to the art museum. He's all jumping around that famous scene. So they do a big fireworks show and stuff like that. And so as I started to develop as an entrepreneur, I started looking for opportunities. And what I figured out was people go down there and they want water, right? Because it's, you know, a lot of people. So getting water is difficult. So I went to, you know, Sam's, got all these cases of water, went and got a, you know, one of those rolling, you know, bins and all that, froze the water, put it in there. And I went down and I was selling water for $2, right? Which, when you have a degree, you're like, you have a degree? Why are you out on the parkway selling water? Well, it's because I was buying it for 13 cents a bottle. And then I was selling it for $2. But more than that, I was doing something that made me uncomfortable. Like that made me nervous to go out there and try to sell, to put myself out there, because, you know, it's not the cool looking thing to do. But I know for me, I was looking for ways to break a shell. There's a horse in the barn. I was afraid of him. So then I said, all right, I have to learn how to work with this horse because I'm afraid. So now whenever I'm faced with something that makes me afraid, I look at a way to go get it. Like I look at a way to attack that because that's showing me something. And I need to get outside of my comfort zone in order to really become my best self. And so I encourage people, I'm like, get uncomfortable. Do that thing that seems weird to you, uncomfortable to you, it's hard for you. You might be embarrassed because somebody might laugh at you. Yeah, do it. Do it. Become used to that because it'll make you, again, a stronger person.
Absolutely. We're the same person when it comes to that, man. I just, all I need to do is feel a little bit of fear, a little bit of resistance. Typically, I identify fear as excitement. I'm not nervous, I'm excited. But the craziest thing I think I've done behind just pushing out of my comfort zone is going skydiving. I've never been like a thrill seeker or anything like that, but I wasn't comfortable with the idea of there's this limit that you just can't go past. You know, and I think this is a perfect time to talk about having, because that's what it's all about. Following that go,